whoa, stop doing that. It's bad for your writing. Today, I want to talk to you about a few habits that you should avoid if you want to improve your writing, which I assume you do because you're watching this channel. If you'll allow me to manufacture a metaphor, writing is a lot like dieting. Oh shit, is that a simile? It's a long-term process with benefits that only show up after a lot of time and effort. And there are a lot of things that you could be doing on a subconscious level that can be interrupting your progress. So to make you more conscious of these issues, let's talk about 3 things that may be sabotaging your writing progress without you even realizing it. Thing number 1, reading. Wait, did I read that right? Okay, I maybe could have worded that a little better. Reading is actually an incredibly important part of becoming a better writer. Reading allows us to digest and internalize other stories, learn what makes us react in both a positive and a negative way, and helps us to better understand how prose should flow and be structured. The problem comes in when we don't use that information in the correct way. I was prone to this when I was a very inexperienced writer. I would read a book, really enjoy it, and then really want to make something similar. I read The Count of Monte Cristo and was suddenly writing revenge stories. I read The Name of the Wind and tried to write really flowy prose. I started reading Joe Abercrombie, and the amount of violence and sex scenes in my writing went way up. Reading is a great way to figure out what we enjoy and what we want to incorporate into our own authorial voice. The problem comes in when we start to be too derivative or when we lurch between styles without really landing on anything. The voice that you develop as a writer should be organic and unique to you, not just a copy of whoever you happen to be reading. What you really want to be doing here is reading like a writer. Don't let your emotional reactions to a story pull you into a given direction without giving it some thought. Why does a certain style resonate with you? What do you feel the author could have done better? How can you combine different elements from different authors into something new? Understanding why you like something and want to emulate it in your own writing is more important than just deciding to emulate it. This is especially important if you're trying to write with marketability in mind. You also need to make sure that your style aligns with modern expectations and genre conventions. If you want to write modern YA romance, but you've based your writing style and plot lines around the Victorian era novels that you like, then that could be a problem. This doesn't mean that you need to stop reading those novels. You just need to make sure that you're not pulling too much of your style from them if you're trying to write for a more modern audience. Thing to avoid number 2, getting feedback. I'm guessing you're going to disagree with that statement. Yes, getting feedback from either beta readers or critique partners is really important. Having extra sets of eyes on your work will identify problems with your writing that you might not have been aware of. A good critique partner is worth their weight in whiteout. They can help keep you motivated and help you improve your writing through time. That being said, when it comes to understanding, using, and implementing feedback, you need to be very careful. Straightforward things like grammar or awkward or repetitive language are pretty straightforward. But when advice starts to potentially affect the plot of your story or the feeling of your writing as far as your voice is concerned, then you need to be a little bit more critical of your critiques. A good critique partner will understand what it is you're trying to do with your story and provide feedback that helps you achieve that. They don't try to change what you're doing, they just try to help you do it in a better way. They shouldn't try to adjust your story or your writing style to fit what they think is better. And think is the operative word here. If you're lucky enough to have a way more experienced critique partner, or if you're working with a professional developmental editor, that's a different matter. But most of the time, your critique partner is going to be a regular schlub like you. That doesn't mean that their advice won't be helpful, and it doesn't mean that they won't help you to improve. But you shouldn't blindly implement all of their advice without giving it some consideration. And I would also argue, even if you are working with a very experienced critique partner or a professional editor, you should still make these same considerations. Think about how making a suggested change lines up with your vision for the story. Does a particular scene not work because it's a bad idea, or is there a way that you could change it to be more impactful? Did your critique partner just misunderstand the purpose of something that you wrote, or is there genuinely room for improvement? Follow advice when it makes sense to you. Try and think deeper about what the feedback is telling you. Don't just implement it blindly. Now, giving, receiving, and utilizing feedback is a much broader topic that probably bears its own video, or even its own series of videos perhaps, but these are some of the basic considerations. Next up, thing number 3 that will not improve your writing: trying to improve your writing. I should have improved these setups a little bit more. Earlier on, I awkwardly compared becoming a better writer to dieting. Just like with dieting, writing is a process. It's carried out over a long period of time, and you'll see improvements through time. It takes a long time to become a better writer. You're looking at a few years of practice, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of words, and a whole lot of feedback. Because of how long the process takes and how much work it involves, becoming a better writer is not really a goal that you have a lot of control over. Becoming a better writer isn't something that you can go out and achieve. It's just something that happens as a byproduct of putting the effort in. This long-term goal is rooted in the future, which you have very little control over. What you do have control over is what you're doing each day, and that's what you should be focused on. Your long-term goal, whether it's finishing a novel, publishing a novel, or just getting your skills to a better place, is too amorphous and too big to get done in one day. And if you fixate too much on that end goal, it's going to negatively impact your motivation, and it will be harder and harder to actually make progress. You don't have control over whether you're going to write 100,000 words this year, but you do have control over whether or not you'll write 1,000 words today. Whether you become a better writer, or you write something worth publishing, or you finish your draft is determined by the decisions you make today. You won't see a lot of improvement, but that doesn't mean it isn't happening. This is something that people misunderstand about learning new skills. The change that happens when we learn something and internalize it usually precedes action. You don't write a great book and then become a great writer. You learn to become a great writer, and then you write a great book. And the only way that you can get there and make consistent progress is by focusing on what you need to do each day. Now, this doesn't mean that you shouldn't have a long-term plan, and it doesn't mean that you shouldn't set long-term goals. But when it comes to actioning those goals, focus on what you can get done today in the short term. Over time, at a largely subconscious level, a lot of the improvements will come, so long as you stay focused on getting the work done. Just like you focused on watching this video for the last 7 or 8 minutes. So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this video and found the advice in it useful. If you want to see more stuff like this, you can check out all my other writing advice related videos and subscribe to my channel. I post new videos every Wednesday. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.